This is just an introductory video to solar panels. If you imagine electricity from any system being something like water, so the concept or the analogy behind it is that the solar panel is like the windmill. It provides you electricity for free. In this case, it's a sun windmill, so it makes electricity or water using the sun power. So when the sun shines directly on that, it works well. That's the inverter. That's the battery. So think of the battery like the JoJo tank. The bigger the JoJo tank, the more kind of water you get from your windmill or from other sources. So in the case of kind of, let's say, a battery, a lot of the time your electricity would be free from here, but you could also use other sources, so like your municipal electricity feed as being a feed for the battery. So in this particular instance, that's a 2.5 kilowatt battery. So I think 2,500 litre JoJo tank. That panel there is a 500 watt. So in 5 hours, that panel can more or less fill up that battery. So with the battery, you don't actually use 100% of the capacity. So think of that as having the tap in the JoJo tank, not all the way at the bottom, but 20% of the way up. So then you're leaving 20% in the battery. So in this instance, if that's 2,500 at 500 watts an hour, it can in 4 hours it can fill up the remaining 2,000 liters here of the JoJo tank stroke battery. The inverter, think of that as the pipe coming out of the JoJo tank stroke battery. How big that inverter is determines how big that pipe is. How quickly is it possible that I can empty that JoJo tank? So if the bigger the pipe hole, the quicker that it can pour out. But most times in kind of most houses, your power usage from your inverter is generally between 300 and 600 watts. So it's not actually massive volumes. When things like fridges and kettles and things like that start up, they use significant amounts of power. So anything that's resistive, so anything that gets hot, so like a stove, unless it's a gas stove, a kettle, a geyser, all of those things use significant amounts of power from your inverter or battery. But if you've got a gas geyser or a gas cooker, it uses absolutely or almost zero power. The only time it would use power is if it's got like an electronic start. So you push the button and the spark goes, and that comes from electricity, and that's also very, very small. So in this particular setup, that's a Schneider. This is a very good transformer. It's a very, very small one. So this setup that I'm showing here is a very simple setup. That's called a Schneider. That's an 850 VA. So that's only a 12 volt battery. So the panel, I think that panel pours electricity into that JoJo tank. How quickly that JoJo tank pours out is determined by that machine. So that's the inverter that's normally on the wall. That's the battery. That's the windmill. So windmill, JoJo tank, tap off JoJo tank.